I'm Ann Humphreys. I'm a professional hula hooper. This is my first hooping video. I was 36 years old. I had never been able to hula hoop before and truly thought I would never be able to. Look how stiff my arms are. This is me now. I'm 51 years old.
Hey Flomies! Welcome back to the Sacred Flow Art channel. I'm Liora, or Catherine, of Infinite Cummings, here today in San Jose, Costa Rica, as my partner and I drive around the world on the Unite the World Firsthand global movement. We're bringing you 2 new flow arts tutorials every single week, and the occasional now interview with other flow artists from around the world. Today we have Ann Humphreys. Welcome.
Hey, great to be here.
Awesome. Whereabouts are you located?
I am here in central North Carolina in a town called Carborough, which is adjacent to Chapel Hill, which some of you might have heard of Chapel Hill.
So what all do you do in the flow arts community and in the flow arts world?
I have been teaching hula hooping, or hoop dance, or hooping, since 2007. I was lucky enough to get started very early in the flow arts. I met another legend, another Carborough legend called Jonathan Baxter back in 2005. And he is known as Baxter. He's also known for being the original channel of breaking and reversing. So if you break and reverse your hoop or paddle, he was the original practitioner and teacher of those techniques. And he was also, he's also known for hooping blindfolded. He's always wearing a blindfold in all his videos, and that's how I learned.
That's cool.
With a big hoop and a blindfold.
And is hula hooping the only prop that you are working with?
For me, yes. It's just been the hoop, and sometimes I play with 2 hoops.
Uh-huh.
And I've picked up poi, I've picked up a staff here and there, but I've just always gone back to the hoop, and because the hoop involves the entire body.
Yes.
In a way that some of the other flow props don't quite, and the staff certainly can, although that then there's another kind of leap of learning that I haven't done yet in the staff, but with the hoop is a little bit easier, so.
Yeah.
But no, the hoop really led me more also into free dancing, and so I've done a lot of ecstatic dance.
Yes.
And just moving, it just brought me into my body in a new way.
I not only learned how to hula hoop, I learned how to dance. And not only did I learn how to dance, I learned how to feel. How to feel my physical embodied sensations, and also how to feel my emotions. It's not something that people talk about a lot. I learned a lot about how to just live inside a human body. I learned how to dance my pain and dance my joy. And then I spent 8 years writing a book about it. It's called the Tao of Hoop, on the transformational practice of hula hooping. Seriously though, I wrote it for you.
When did you begin realizing that hula hooping and flow arts is beneficial for human health, the practice of it, and would you share more with us on that discovery?
Well, for me, it was pretty immediate. And again, I had this very anomalous experience of meeting a very experienced flow artist right when I started. I mean, I guess it's not so anomalous now, but back then it was, most people who were hooping back then were teaching themselves. I knew that night when I went to the class, which I only went to, by the way, because I had a crush on him. I had no interest in hooping at all. I just saw him hooping. I just saw him hooping at our local co-op, and I was like, that guy is so hot. And I was amazed by the dance and the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple days later, this friend of mine who was an art professor at UNC, the university here, he and I were sitting and having lunch, and he spotted Baxter across the way and was like, hey, man. And I was like, oh, my God, it's the hula hooping guy. I'm going to die. And then he came over, and then my friend Kim Won was like, let's go to the hooping class. And I was like, okay. Even though inside I was like, oh, my God. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I was so terrified of dropping the hoop, which of course I did.
Mm-hmm.
But starting with Baxter, back to your question, I could tell in my own body that night that something was changing because I stopped thinking. I stopped thinking. That never happens. So it was just this way that this space opened up, and I was able to be in it without my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so that was very new and very powerful. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that something was healing for me.
Mm-hmm. When did you start realizing that something needed to be shared from your end as it relates to hula hooping? Like, when did you start teaching? Kind of a side question.
2007 in March, we went out to Portland and also to Eugene and taught a couple of workshops. And so in those workshops, Baxter was teaching, but I was assisting people one-on-one, because by that time I had learned a lot of what he had to teach. And then that went on for a while. And then the following year at Hoop Camp, which was a large hoop retreat that happened for several years, I was invited to teach separately. So it was Baxter and I both taught, along with our friend Beth. So all three of us taught a class at Hoop Camp. So that was my first time teaching individually, and it was very overwhelming because my first class was at this huge retreat, and there were like 200 people, and we were outside. Oof. And it was very overwhelming, and I was the last one and the last of the three of us. And while I was teaching, the sun totally went down. It was like I had to just totally bear it, like, everything kind of went too long. And so my class was like later than intended. So it was a very intense first time teaching.
Wow. Incredible.
But then Baxter and I, we broke up at the end of 2009. And then we've remained best friends to this day. But at that point, I moved up to New York, where I had lived in New York City before, and I was really eager to take my teaching there and kind of find some new students, because being here in this tiny town, we already had, Bax had a couple of weekly classes. At that time, I think our friend Julia had started teaching weekly classes, and our friend Bonnie was teaching some weekly classes, so there was a lot of hooping classes in Carborough in 2010. And so I moved up to New York City and began teaching my own classes in Brooklyn. Cool. And that's when I developed my own curriculum, Line and Circle. Well, for me, when I was on my own, when I began teaching myself, so I had, a good 4.5 years of Baxter every day, just really learning everything from Baxter. And it was hooping 24/7. So then when I was on my own, and I knew some people in Brooklyn, but, I was working on my own. And so I became obsessed really with the geometry and the physics of hooping, like really paying attention to the geometry and physics of body and hoop. And that's why I called it Line and Circle, because I did end up really getting passionate about simplifying things into those images, into those, digestible pieces that people could learn bit by bit.
Would you share with us a brief overview of your upcoming book and what inspired you to start the writing process of that?
Yes, thank you. The book is called The Tao of Hoop. I do feel that hooping is, for me, a Taoist practice, and Taoism is the philosophy that I feel most in tune with, because it is based on embodied reality. And the practices, Qigong and Tai Chi, are based on embodiment alone. And there's not and there's not a whole lot of dogma that goes along with Taoism, but the subtitle is The Tao of Hoop on the Transformational Practice of Hula Hooping, Seriously Though, is the entire title. The book is really about, it's about how I found the hoop and meeting Baxter and all that fun stuff, but it's also really, it's also about loss and pain and our inner and outer responses to that. And so I'm telling the story also of my dad's death from a brain tumor when I was a teenager.
Wow.
Which was, of course, utterly life-changing, shattering experience.
Yeah.
And that was a spiritual crisis, of dimensions that some of you will recognize and have had that kind of experience.
I'm sure.
So that really paralyzed me on a spiritual level for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then when I found the hoop and came into my body, it helped. It really changed. It changed the way that I think. It made me more able to understand space and time and scale in a way that I could not before. It allowed me to comprehend that loss. And then I also tell this other story of my friend Kimawan, who introduced me to Baxter. So he was one of my best friends, an artist, an amazing human being, and he also had a brain tumor.
Oh.
Which he had been living with for many years when I met him. My dad's brain tumor was very fast, and it killed him in 6 months.
Wow.
And the Kimawan had been diagnosed at the age of 29 when he was in grad school.
Wow. With
this brain tumor, and it was the slow kind. So when I met him, he had brain surgery, and he had completely recovered, and he had a totally normal life. This type of brain tumor he had, oligodendroglioma, it would be slow, and then it would speed up after, it would speed up over time. It would begin to grow faster. And so he had a second brain surgery in 2007, which paralyzed him on his left side.
Wow.
So that experience of being with him through that, mainly through that year, that first year after his surgery and his recovery, made, an indelible impact on me and the trajectory of my life. These stories are all in the book, so don't, I'm giving you the highlights, but
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a lot of what I talk about in the book is chemo and his journey and
some real raw life experiences that tie into your hoop journey is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And he is the hero of my hoop journey and of my life. He is a hero that I have known. And so we lost him in 2011. So it's 10 years this summer.
Whew.
So I've been writing this book actually since 2012. So a year after he died, I finally began to feel ready to write about it.
So do you have any goals for once this book is published?
My main goal for this book, I think one of my main goals would be that somebody who was just sort of trapped in thinking through everything in their mind, which is how I view myself before the hoop, that I was using my mind. My mind could usually solve the problem, so I was going to default to I'm going to use my mind, which meant I was trying to think my emotions. And then I was getting very, and then I wouldn't be able to let go of things.
Yeah.
Because I was analyzing and trying to figure out what did I do wrong, And so my ideal goal would be that a person who did not feel embodied would be invited into their body somehow, would feel welcomed into their body, into feeling, into movement, and just into existing as a more complete being.
Beautiful.
But another goal that's really equal to that I wanted to share chemo with the world. He was a great artist who, he was 47 when he died, and he hadn't established his whole body of work, and he hadn't established himself Yeah, and he had to take all this time out, for healing.
Yeah.
So I also just wanted to showcase him as the exceptional human being that he was.
Wow.
And to share that. And to share that, like, I guess also that, a lot, like, from his story, that anybody who's facing something like that could be inspired to keep growing and to keep learning, because that's what he did. He never stopped creating, learning, being curious, letting the world teach him, letting himself be humble and learn.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of stories invested into this book that transition real life experiences with healing as its own thing, as well as with hooping as its own thing. So it feels like it really branches off. And I'll transition it now. For those of you who'd like to read more and discover more about this book, The Tao of Hooping, or The Tao of Hoop, The Tao of Hoop, yes. So you can find Ann Humphreys' Kickstarter page. We'll leave a link in the description of this video so that you're able to just click the link and head over and check her out and donate. She's fundraising for her book, and it comes out when?
Well, first of all, I would not to nitpick, and excuse me, but I was just reminded of this by a friend. It's not as much of a donation as an investment, because you will receive a copy of the book for investing in the project. So I have a $10 reward, which means a signed copy of the book if you commit $10 to the project. If you commit $20, you will get a signed copy of the book, plus the discount codes for the ebook and audiobook versions, which I'm also making available. And if you commit $50, you can get the signed copy, the discounts, plus an online hoop lesson from me.
Amazing.
So different rewards, and the Kickstarter closes on July 15th. So that means I won't be able to turn the book around until after July 15th. My goal is to have the book available on Kindle Direct Publishing, so the Amazon platform. It will be available on the Amazon platform called Kindle Direct Publishing. My hope is that by August 1st.
Well, may this video be a catalyst for people to discover your book and to help keep the publicity going. Growth.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so honored.